Well, it's a great salt of the earth ministry that does so much good for so many people in ways that nobody knows.
I wanted to work in an organization that was more involved in the community, and I liked that they were really proactive in their work. They'll meet people where they're at when they're having difficulty, and that can often keep people from sinking into difficult problems.
Like I say, I think just the concept that they're helping people that, you know, maybe wouldn't have another avenue for counseling. And I've been through some rough times in my life too, and it's nice to have somebody to talk to. So.
Well, I was familiar with Cornerstone's ministry and their philosophy, and that certainly attracted me, and the fact that it was a Christian or non-denominational organization had a great appeal for me as well.
Every part of it, the people, they're a great group, like Sheila and stuff, is just, you know, fantastic, and I think that they really care.
And I guess one would have to go through painful chapters of their life like I did to maybe fully appreciate the value and positive change that counseling can bring about in an individual's life.
And I remember that first year I was very impressed with Andy. That's where I met Andy, so I was very impressed with Andy and the family and friends he brought out to the event. Turns out in later years I got to know that some of those folks were employees of Clark Builders. And he was just always so very passionate and energetic and committed to Cornerstone and to the paddling event.
I heard this enormous buzz about him forever and ever, it seemed. So when I first came on, he was actually on the board.
I think initially he was just so warm, and he was such a busy man.
Oh, Andy Clark is a natural leader, I think, and very spontaneous and really caring, very caring.
Then we'd sit down and he'd give you this big hug and say, "How are you?" And he actually cared. And then when I was ready to leave, he had heard every word I said, and he responded to everything I said. So he was totally there. So this man can multitask like I've never seen anybody in my life. Just, you know, you think, you know, how can you be listening to Gail, your secretary, and you've got your computer monitor and you're also checking out this blueprint on the table, and you've heard every word I've said, you know, just amazing.
How I would characterize Andy is he's this aw shucks guy that has this kind of brilliant business mind in such an understated way. As his leadership is the same. It's like very solid, but very respectful and very understated. And that was my first impression of him, was this kind of aw shucks guy. And I'm just kind of scratching my head because I've heard all this buzz about, you know, his enormous success and what a go-getter he was. And he has this knack to make you feel so comfortable. And that's my first impression, I think.
Well, if you feel called, I guess, to support Cornerstone, either as a volunteer or as a board member, I would encourage you to step up and take that on. You'll work with some wonderful people. It will do your heart good to support an organization like this that does so much good for so many people in ways that none of us here can fully appreciate.
Well, I guess as part of the paddling committee, I wanted to thank him for his support of, you know, the first 10 years of the event. That's for sure. I guess he's had a fairly big impact indirectly on who I am right now.
Well, just that Andy stands for compassion. I had a time in my life when I lost my dad a couple of years ago, and I'd only been a Clark employee for about 5 months, and he said, "I've heard you've been, you know, having a little bit of a rough time. How about you take the keys to my cabin and you go to the shoe shop for a week?" I'm like, wow. So yeah, that was my really big encounter with seeing how big his heart is. Yeah, so good luck, Andy. We miss you.
I certainly learned a lot from him, and he was very, very generous with his time for the organization and for me personally. Always made himself available, which never ceased to amaze me, given how everybody is always after him for his time. But he did. He pulled that off, and I don't know how, except that it has to speak to some enormous commitment of heart on his part. And so that's how I see him, and I really am very grateful to him for his assistance to Cornerstone primarily, and for what I've learned from him just hanging out with him.
Well, I guess just a huge, huge thank you, you know, for having the patience. The organization went through lots of difficult times, and just the faithfulness that he's expressed, staying with the organization through its ups and downs, and just being there also for staff when we went through difficult times. He would be the kind of guy who would call you the day of the paddling event and say, "How's it going?"
Yeah, I'd like to say to Andy that I really appreciated his leadership and his encouragement and friendship while I was serving as executive director.
Well, one of the things I have been doing since I started in getting to know the agency was I've been looking through the archives. I've been looking through the newsletters, through the old photos, through DVDs that we've taken at various events, and I have seen Andy's influences throughout. Andy has just been woven throughout the fabric of this organization for the past 12 years, and that has just been really neat to see. Pictures of him, hear him on video clips, and I can really see that Andy has had a tremendous impact on Cornerstone and just been a huge supporter for the organization.
I just like to thank all the staff and board members that I've had the privilege of working with over the years. I've really enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed getting to know so many good people that I've been richly blessed as a result.